제 전부 저던 힘이 장종의 물음 전부가 되었다. 바그르 다른 산도 실물도 또 되지 전라 기시험자를 오늘 전로 저링이 정금스 자고 뒤집신로 야라 지금 반조자라 소란데 뭐지 또반 포르신지로
To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Now we will begin our teaching on chapter 5 of the Bodhicharyavatara. In this 5th chapter, we are now discussing the benefits of guarding the mind. There are both brief and detailed explanations. We have already covered the brief explanation. Today, we will focus on the detailed explanation. The detailed explanation is introduced in 2 parts. Actual teaching on dispel fear and the scriptural sources for this. This outline is slightly different from Patrul Rinpoche's outline for this part. When I taught the Bodhicharyavatara for the first time, I explained it according to Patrul Rinpoche's outline, which is a little different from here. According to Patrul Rinpoche, what we will be discussing today, as well as some of what we discussed yesterday, belong to the section of all faults arise from the mind. The content included in the 6 paramita that we will discuss later belongs to the section of all virtues arise from the mind. So, despite slight differences in how the text is structured, ultimately the meaning should be the same. So, let us look at the first verse for today's teaching. For he who spoke the truth has taught that everything we fear and sufferings beyond all measure originate from mind. Here the term, he who spoke the truth, refers to our most compassionate and the only person with valid cognition in this world, the Buddha. The Buddha tells us that all the countless fears and terrors beings experience in this world, as well as the endless sufferings experienced in the 6 realms of samsara, all arises from the mind. It is because our mind is impure that we experience all of these. So how should we understand this point? First, we must realize that all phenomena, all suffering and all fear arise from our own impure mind. And who said this? It was taught by none other than the only protector of sentient beings in this world, our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, and the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Can we trust what they have taught? Of course, it is completely trustworthy. In our daily lives, we sometimes see a very honest person, and we would say that such a person is very reliable and trustworthy because they never lie. But the Buddha is fundamentally different from any ordinary person in the world. Over countless lifetimes, he has completely eliminated the root causes of lying, as well as all other negative actions. Therefore, Dharma Kirti also says in the Pramanavartika that one who is free from faults does not speak falsehood. To explain it, if someone is free from the faults of desire, anger, and ignorance, he would never tell a lie. Therefore, in the chapter on establishment of valid cognition of the Pramanavartika, Dharmakirti has explained through reasoning and valid logic that the Buddha is the only person with valid cognition. I'm also thinking that after we finish the treasury of valid cognition this year, we should study the chapter on establishment of valid cognition of the Pramanavartika. Learning this text is quite important for us. I am now trying my best to translate this text, even though it contains a lot of material. But in any case, as followers of Buddha Shakyamuni, we should not just have faith in Buddhism simply by repeating what others say. We should develop genuine conviction from within that Buddha Shakyamuni is truly the person with valid cognition in this world. If each of us develops this certainty, then no matter what adverse conditions we encounter, our faith in the Buddha will not waver. If our faith in the Buddha remains firm, then our faith in the Dharma, the Sangha, and all the teachings the Buddha gave, including the law of karma and its effects, will also be unshakable. Therefore, to achieve this goal, I hope that the main benefit we gain from studying Buddhist logic is to develop genuine faith in the Buddha and the Dharma. Some people think studying Buddhist logic is for debate and argument. I think we should first clarify our main purpose in studying Buddhist logic. So what we discuss today is the words of the Buddha, who is a speaker of truth. As everyone should understand, the Buddha has eliminated the roots of lying. So everything he says is true speech. As stated in the Diamond Sutra, the Tathagata is a speaker of truth, a speaker of reality, a speaker of what is thus, one who does not deceive, one who does not speak otherwise. This teaching shows that everything the Buddha says is the truth. So first we need to know who is speaking. If it is the Buddha, then it is completely reliable. When we were students, we tended to think if the teacher says it, it must be trustworthy. We believe what the teacher said was credible. In the same way, Buddha Shakyamuni is the only person with valid cognition in this world. His words have never been found to contain any contradictions or faults by any scholar or researcher. Therefore, we are truly fortunate to have faith in him or rely on him. It is definitely worthwhile. What the Buddha taught us is exactly the meaning of this verse. As we have mentioned earlier, all the fears in the world, such as the various terrors caused by non-humans and humans, natural disasters like earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, and so on. This endless stream of disasters and terrors that happens every day in the world are all caused by our mind. No matter what kind of sentient being one becomes in the 6 realms of samsara, all the suffering they experience is ultimately created by their own mind. According to the Mahayana treatises, not only these sufferings, both the material world and the world of sentient beings are created by the mind. It is said in the introduction to the Middle Way, the world of sentient beings and the material world, with all their differences, are formed by the mind. So our mind is able to project all phenomena. Many Mahayana sutras often say that all phenomena are merely mind. In the Jewel Cloud Sutra, it is also taught that if the mind attains freedom, then one attains mastery over all phenomena. So, through practicing the Dharma, we should see if our minds can gain some freedom. If our mind gains freedom, then all worldly problems, happiness, suffering, food, shelter, are resolved. But unfortunately, as ordinary beings, we rarely observe our minds. There are so many people in the city rushing about and searching for something, but what exactly are they searching for? There are millions of people striving, but what do these strivers ultimately achieve? We can observe for ourselves. Therefore, if we regularly observe our mind according to the teachings of Buddhism, or if some of us have a certain level of realization, we can observe the mind according to the pith instructions of the Vajrayana and the teachings of the Sutrayana. This will bring great benefit to our lives and our existence. If we have not achieved states of realization, by observing our mind with Dharma, at least we will find our lives to be very happy and at ease. As long as our mind gains freedom, then we will gain freedom in everything else. The Buddha says in the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom, all phenomena arises from the mind. I think this is something we can observe in the world, whether someone is wealthy or poor, or of high status, or unattractive, or have difficult personalities. From the perspective of observing the mind, if anyone's mind attains freedom, they will be happy, like some great masters have been very happy even in prison. But if their mind is not free, then even in the highest position or the grandest palace, their mind will never find true happiness. Therefore, as practitioners, we must often observe our minds. This is extremely important. Mifam Rinpoche also said in his teachings, observing 100 external phenomena is not as important as observing the one mind. If we regularly observe our mind, gradually it will become at ease. I have not practiced well, and I always feel embarrassed when teaching others, but I have never given up studying and analyzing Buddhist teachings for many years, so I understand these reasons clearly. What is the most important thing for us? It is to regularly observe our own mind. If we do this, our mind will gradually become capable, free, and tamed. If our mind gains freedom, then dealing with all external situations will not be so difficult. So, whether it's a layperson or a practitioner, observing the mind is extremely important. Next, to practice observing our mind is important both for this life and for future lives. Everything arises from the mind. So, the next verse tells us that the results and sufferings we experience, hell, hungry ghost realms, and so on, are all created by the mind. This is the main point of this verse. Who is it that specifically made the weapons of the hells? Who made the ground of burning iron? Whence come the lovers in hell? This verse makes it very clear that among the 6 realms of samsara, the most terrifying is the hell realm. If we have studied the Sutra of the application of mindfulness of the true Dharma, or the Sutra of distinguishing sentient beings, or treatises such as the Great Chariot, or the words of my perfect teacher, we will be aware that the circumstances in the hells, in the hot hell, there are burning iron grounds everywhere, with continuous blazing flames appearing without end. Countless beings are suffering there, and when they wish to attain liberation, there is simply no way out. There are countless hell wardens guarding the beings in hell. Each of them holds various weapons, such as swords, axes, saws, and so on. Other sutras, such as the Agama Sutras and the Ksitigarbha Sutra, also describe that there are many different hell beings, such as iron eagles, copper snakes, as well as mountains of swords and forests of swords. There are many such inconceivable scenes. So if the phenomena of hell, whether those weapons or beings in it, are not created by the mind, if these things truly exist, then who made them? No one can make these. Why? Hell's is not like our human world. For example, a single burning iron plate in the hells is said to be 20,000 or 80,000 yojanas across. This is described in many sutras. So, which factory could have produced such a huge piece of iron? Which company could have supplied it? If there are so many weapons and countless beings in the hells, it is well known that the number of hell beings is far greater than the number of humans. There are countless hell beings, and for each one there are countless hell gods holding all kinds of weapons. Just the weapons alone, where could they have been manufactured? This is impossible, both in the hells and in the human world. There are not enough raw materials or factories to produce them. So what is the reason for the existence of such terrifying scenes? It is because sentient beings have committed many negative actions before, and these negative actions have ripened in the external environment. When the karmic results ripen as the environment of hell, beings will truly experience immense suffering in such hells. So, who made the ground of burning iron? It is impossible for any person to have made them. If someone really did make burning iron of hell, we could investigate where exactly these places of production are. Is there a fire burning under the iron ground like a boiler? If that were the case, there would have to be people tending the fire, and when they get tired, they might stop and take a break. Then, with no one tending the boiler, the beings in the burning hell could rest for a few days. Like, today, the hell wardens didn't arrange things so we can all take a break and rest for a few days. Everyone would happily sing and dance. But does this ever happen? Of course not. In the hells, beings experience suffering day and night without interruption. So the way things work there is completely different from our human ideas. There are also other types of hells we've discussed before. Those who committed sexual misconduct or broke precepts often suffer immense pain on the Iron Spike Mountain. When they arrive there, they hear their former lover calling to them from the mountain. At that moment, they develop an intense desire and begin to climb the mountain. But as soon as they start climbing, all the trees on the mountain turn into weapons. Their own intestines and internal organs are pieced out. By the time they reach the top, they are in such agony that most have died. At that moment, the lover they longed for are nowhere to be found. Instead, there are iron-beaked crows, iron dogs, iron maidens, and so on, constantly embracing them with the burning flames. Then, from the foot of the mountain, they hear those voices again, and so the cycle continues. So, if the so-called hell is not created by one's own mind, if there really are such women in the external world, then where did all these women come from? There are countless women, and who made Iron Spike Mountain? Who provided it? If we examine it this way, none of it makes sense. When we study the Abhidharma Kosha, the accounts for the locations of the hell and hungry ghost realms vary. But according to the compendium of Abhidharma and the Yogacara and Madhyamaka views, these are expedient teachings given by the Buddha to certain beings. But in the definitive teachings, not only the hells, but all of the three realms of samsara are created by the minds of sentient beings. As Mahayana Buddhists, we must understand this point. If we do not understand this, we will be no different from the proponents of realism or those materialists. They believe that place and things exist for real. In this case, many questions cannot be explained, including rebirth in the Pure Land. After we study more treatises of Mahayana Buddhism, and especially of Vajrayana Buddhism, we come to understand that it is the ignorance of sentient beings at work. There is no other cause. Of course, this does not mean that what we see now is real and that hell is just some vague, illusory thing. That's not what is meant. Please don't misunderstand. If we misunderstand this way, then we are no different from ordinary worldly people. Therefore, we should always reflect in this way. In the past, when teaching the debate between dream and waking, His Holiness shared some stories from the prophecy for Bhadra, the illusionist, to clearly illustrate that the entire three realms of samsara are created by the mind. At first, some people, especially those who have never studied Mahayana Buddhism, may find it a bit difficult to accept or understand. This is quite common. But as we gradually study more Mahayana sutras and treatises, this doubt will naturally disappear. As His Holiness has said before, we are always dreaming. For example, while sleeping in a small room, we can dream of all kinds of external worlds, and sometimes these dreams can last a very long time. His Holiness has also given examples regarding this. In fact, people often talk about the story of yellow millet dream and the dream of Nanke. These worldly tales clearly show that there is nothing real exists in the world. I have always felt that the ancients had some ability to analyze the truth of the world, but some people regard these as myths or fairy tales. But in fact, we should say that these are real events. For example, in the yellow millet dream, the protagonist was a poor man who went to see a Taoist priest to talk about his difficult situation. He said that throughout his life he had never enjoyed wealth and had suffered a lot. The Taoist told him, "That's nothing, just have a good rest. Maybe after you rest you'll find happiness." So after he rested, he dreamed that he entered a new world. In this new world, he married a princess and had 5 children. He became an official in various places, and the king treated him very well. Later, when he was about to die, he wrote a letter to the king saying that throughout his life he had always been loyal to the king and so on. In the end, the king was very good to him, and then he died. So from his youth he enjoyed wealth and glory, married, had children, fell into decline, and finally died. He experienced an entire life in his dream. When that life ended and he died, he woke up and realized that it was just as he was about to fall asleep. The innkeeper was putting millet in the pot. Cooking millet is like how we cook noodles now. When he woke up, the millet was not yet cooked. He had dreamed a whole lifetime in just a moment, not even an hour. Nowadays, with a pressure cooker, it wouldn't even take an hour to cook the millet. In ancient times, maybe it took a bit longer to cook. When he woke up, not cooked. So people use this as a way that life is a dream, some memory. But it is not just illusion. Why? Because all the experiences he had at that time was real for him. In fact, our life experience is no different from these experiences. In the dream, he was wealthy from 10 to 20 years, and then he became an old man. When he was old, some of his children had already started their own families. After that, he had grandchildren, and after that, he woke up from his dream. The story of the dream of Nanki is exactly the same. In that story, the main character went to a place called Nanki to become a governor and had several children. The story began when the main character was celebrating his birthday. He drank some wine, got drunk, and fell asleep. After falling asleep, he found himself in the presence of the emperor, married a princess, had children, and then went to Nanke to serve as governor. After living there for 20 years, he went to war with another country but was defeated. After his defeat, he returned home feeling very unhappy. By the time he returned home, his wife had already died. He was overcome with grief. The king was displeased with him because he had not won the war. He thought back on his life, all that he had been, but now, suddenly he had lost everything. His wife, his status. When he woke up, he had only slept for a short while. In that short time, he had experienced an entire lifetime. So for people today, it was just a dream. Many writers and intellectuals today regard these stories as myths or fantasies, but in fact it's not. If these are illusions, then our current life is also made up of these experiences. How do these experiences arise? They arise for certain sentient beings. While alive, people also experience similar suffering. That is why our sutras are full of such stories to illustrate these points. I have always thought that today, people do not apply these stories to their real experiences, nor do they relate them to the workings of karma. If we consider the karma of sentient beings, when we were children and learned these idioms, we should have understood what this world is really like. Our real life is also a dream. This is how it is. The external world I see now, my whole life, even 100 years, is in fact just a dream. This is why we say life is like a dream. So in the same way, we can say that suffering for 500 years in hell may be just a short time in the human realm. Why do we say that 1 year in the human realm is equal to 10? There's no teaching. We will see that everything in this world is like a dream. With unshakable faith in this, practice becomes much easier. So everyone should understand this verse in this way. Next, the verse goes, the sage has said that all of these arise from wicked thoughts. Therefore, there is in the three worlds no danger other than mind. In this verse, the Buddha said, whether it is elephants, lions, leopards, all the terrors of humans and non-humans in the world, and the unbearable sufferings of the hell, hungry ghost and animal realms in future lives, all these unbearable sufferings are all the result of our past karma, arising from negative minds such as desire, anger, and ignorance. It is through the power of these negative minds that all the negative results, sufferings, and fears are created. Therefore, in the entire desire, form, and formless realms, there is nothing more terrifying than the mind itself. This is the general meaning of this verse. Some people are especially afraid of tigers. Some are especially afraid of thieves at night. Once someone found a thief breaking into his house and was so frightened when he saw the thief. He said to the thief, "You can sit here for a while. I have something to do outside." He didn't dare confront the thief, so he ran away. But facing a thief is not really that frightening. When it comes to robbers and thieves, if you just say something, the thief will run away. So there's no need to be especially afraid. But for those who are timid, when a thief comes to their door or into their house, they would say, "You just stay here. I have something to do outside." But thief is not really something to be so afraid of. Nowadays, some people are very afraid of SARS, some are very afraid of avian flu, some are afraid of enemies or terrorists. People have different kinds of fears. But if we look at it from a long-term perspective, since it is our own mind that has created countless negative actions and karma, our mind is the most terrifying thing. When our negative mind ripens, we will suffer for countless eons. Other things like elephants or terrorists, as we discussed before, at most can rob us of our wealth or take our life once, destroying our body completely. But beyond that, they cannot do any further harm. Therefore, according to the Buddha's teachings, we should know that the most terrifying thing in this world is our own mind. The Buddha also teaches this in the sutras. Among all enemies, the mind is the greatest enemy. There is no greater adversary than the mind. So here the verse says, the sage has said that all of these arise from wicked thoughts. In Tibetan, Buddha is called Thuppa. In the past, when His Holiness was studying in Sershul one day, their teacher Thupga Yishin Norbu was teaching them this verse. Since Thupga Yishin Norbu had Thupga in his name, the next day, when a tutor was giving a review session, because the Tibetan words Thupga and Thuppa sound similar, Thuppa means Buddha, while Thupga was their teacher. So during the review, the tutor said, Thupga Yishin Norbu said that everything is created by the negative mind. The next day, the teacher found out about this and criticized it in class, saying, when did I ever say that everything is created by the negative mind? So sometimes, whether in tutoring or studying, if we do not truly understand what is being taught, we make many funny jokes. So we should understand that in the entire three realms, taming our own minds is extremely important. Therefore, Prajnaparamati says in the Bodhicharyavatara commentary that if there is no negative mind in the world, there is no fear. This is very straightforward. No negative mind, no fear. Whoever tames their own mind, their happiness will be unceasing. The meaning of whoever tames their own mind is if anyone tames their own mind, then they have everlasting happiness. Therefore, both in this life and in future lives, taming our own mind and dispelling fear is extremely important. Next, we will discuss the practice of virtue. The 6 paramitas also arise from the mind. In some outlines, it is explained this way. First, we discuss the paramita of generosity. This too is generated by the mind. If ridding the world of poverty made generosity transcendent, there are still paupers, so how could the past protectors have transcended? Here this verse says, someone thinks the Buddha should have completed the paramita of generosity. If the Buddha's perfection of generosity was not established in his own mind, but instead requires fulfilling the wishes and needs of all sentient beings externally, letting every sentient being happy and wealthy, then all the poor people in the world would already have wealth if it were not established in the mind, but had to be established in the external world and in actual external things. Then there would be great faults. If all the poverty of sentient beings had to be eliminated before the paramita of generosity could be perfected, that would not be reasonable. Even now, we still see many hungry, impoverished, pitiful beings. If that were the case, then all the Buddhas, including Buddha Shakyamuni, would not have perfected the paramita of generosity. This would be a fault. It would not be reasonable. The Buddha is universally recognized as having perfected the paramitas, including generosity. So, on the surface, it may seem that to perfect the 6 paramitas, one must fulfill the wishes of all sentient beings. It is what is said, and it's not wrong. But the true perfection of the 6 paramitas is established in the mind of each sentient being. This is something everyone must understand clearly. Because nowadays, many Mahayana practitioners do not really understand Mahayana doctrines. So, when it comes to the paramita of generosity, they become completely fixated on external things. If they have studied the introduction to the Middle Way or the Sutra of the 10 Bhumis, they should know what true perfection of generosity means. So, we must realize here that the Buddha has definitely perfected the paramita of generosity. How was it perfected? At that time, the Buddha completed the mind of generosity within. In this way, it was perfected. In the future, when each of us attains Buddhahood, will all the poor people around us need to be expelled? No. That is not necessary. When the Buddha was in India, if we look at the Jewel Cloud Sutra and the 100 Deeds Sutra and many other sutras, we can see very clearly that even after the Buddha attained enlightenment, there were still many poor people in India. Now, the Buddha's teachings and activities are still continuing, yet there are still so many poor and suffering people. Does this mean the Buddha did not perfect the paramita of generosity? Not at all. The paramita of generosity is perfected. But was the Buddha's original aspiration to dispel all beings' poverty? Yes, no matter which Buddha, they all made aspirations in this way, and through the power of these aspirations, they all attained the fruition of perfect enlightenment. Therefore, the perfection of paramita is not established in external material things, but should be established in one's own mind. This is extremely important. Next, this principle is explained again. The wish to give all your belongings and the results to everyone is taught to be transcendent giving, and therefore that is mind itself. Here, according to this verse, what kind of mindset can be called the paramita of generosity? It is explained here that all our inner and outer possessions, our wealth, our body, our virtuous roots, and the results of our merit. Here, results of merit means the fruits of our virtuous actions, such as happiness, wealth, and all the enjoyments we experience. Whenever we give all the things, our body, wealth, and virtuous roots of the 3 times, to sentient beings without exception, without the slightest condition attached, without the slightest wish for results of this life and future lives, whenever our mind can give rise to such a mind of generosity, from that moment on, we have the paramita of generosity, as taught in the Mahayana Sutras and in the teaching of Akshayamati, saying, what is called generosity. It is the mind that gives up all wealth and all results of merit. This is called generosity. The sutras clearly define the paramita of generosity. Whenever our mind gives rise to the complete mind of generosity, from that moment our paramita of generosity is perfected. Therefore, according to the Mahayana Sutras, such as the introduction to the Middle Way, it says, from the first bhumi onward, the paramita of generosity is perfected. So we don't need to be a Buddha to perfect the paramita of generosity. It is already perfected at the first bhumi, but we ordinary people cannot perfect the generosity yet. This will be explained further below, because ordinary people are still attached to our bodies, our possessions, and our virtuous roots. Although we can learn to develop the mind of generosity in the way of a bodhisattva of the first bhumi, it is still not possible for us to completely give up our body or completely give up all our virtuous roots. But for now, we can still practice generosity in a similar way. This also brings great merit. Therefore, the perfection of the paramita of generosity should be established in the mind. Some people might wonder, does this mean that material things are not needed at all? That is not the case. If one can give sincerely from their mind, then one will be able to give up their body and possessions. This is what the Buddha taught in the sutras, especially in the extensive biography of Buddha Shakyamuni. We learned that when the Buddha practiced generosity, the Buddha often gave his body, his wife, children, and everything else many times. So when His Holiness taught the extensive biography of the Buddha, he said that most of these stories are about bodhisattvas of the first bhumi and above. This is especially true about stories about the perfection of generosity. Why? Because from these stories we can see that after making an offering there would be no regret. Indra would appear also. The body would immediately be restored after giving away the body and so on. These are signs of the truthfulness achieved by bodhisattvas of the first bhumi and above. Although we cannot do this yet as ordinary beings, but if we continue in this way, we will be able to perfect it in the future, as the verse goes, and therefore that is mind itself. So, the paramita of generosity is entirely established in the mind, not in external things. I hope all monastics, lay practitioners, and Buddhists truly understand this principle. Now, I have emphasized this again and again. Many Buddhists do not have enough understanding of the basic Mahayana principles. They think that giving something away is the perfection of generosity. They never consider the perspective of the mind, but the perfection of discipline, patience, and so on are all established in the mind. That is why we always talk about mind training. The importance of mind training is right here. If we do not train the mind, then all other virtuous roots and actions of body and speech still bear merit. As Buddhist practitioners, we should never say virtuous actions of body and speech have no merit, but compared to the virtues created by the mind, their merit is much smaller. That is the reason why we ask everyone to train the mind every morning. Some people may wonder, if the Buddha did not eliminate all poverty, how could his aspiration be perfected? What does it mean for aspiration to be perfected? In the Ornament of Clear Realization and other Mahayana texts, it is explained that the Buddha benefits beings in 3 ways: purification, perfection, and maturation. In the Ornament of Clear Realization, it is said that the Buddha benefits beings in 3 ways. One is to bring bodhisattvas in their last rebirth to Buddhahood, to the fruition of no more learning. This is called purification. For these bodhisattvas, when the subtle seeds of ignorance and afflictions in their mind streams are completely eliminated, they naturally realize the true nature of all phenomena. This is called purification. Another is to establish beings on the path so that they attain the fruition of a bodhisattva. This is called perfection. What does perfection mean? It means that sentient beings can perfect the qualities of bodhisattvas from the 1st to the 10th bhumi. Another is called maturation, which means establishing beings on the basis of the path. the path of accumulation, and the path of joining. At that time, they may not yet attain the fruition of a bodhisattva, or that the conditions are not yet ripe to establish them on the path of learning. However, by planting virtuous roots in their minds will gradually mature. Originally, their minds were not mature, now they are made to mature. In this way, they are established on the basis of the path. Some people may ask, isn't the Buddha all-powerful? If the Buddha is all-powerful and has boundless compassion, why hasn't he liberated all beings in the Saha world? Some people tend to think in a very simplistic way, but even for the Buddha, he cannot go against the natural laws of the world. Therefore, the Buddha's activities, establishing beings in fruition on the path or on the basis of the path, can be called purification, perfection, and maturation of sentient beings. In this way, his activities are all-pervasive, constant, and unceasing. We should understand it in this way. On one hand, we can know for sure that the Buddha has truly perfected the paramita of generosity. Also, as followers, we must understand that everything is created by our own mind. Hell is created by our own mind, and so is Buddhahood. Everything, whether pure or impure, is all made by the mind. Once our mind gains freedom, then we gain mastery over the external world. If our mind does not gain freedom, then from beginningless time, we have wandered in samsara and have endured countless pains. In the future, we will continue to wander and continue to suffer the agonies of samsara. Therefore, after studying this treatise, everyone should regularly observe the mind. Even if it is just a little bit every day, that is good. Regularly observe the nature of our mind, its origins. In this way, gradually, our mind can be tamed. If we observe our mind, there is still hope. Unlike some children in the world who seem hopeless, our mind is not like that. No matter who we are, as long as we pay attention to the mind and practice, if we put in the effort, there is definitely hope. Therefore, when it comes to liberation, there is no need to ask a lama, do I have the karmic connection to ordain? Do I have the karmic connection to attain liberation? And the lama might look at our face and say, oh, you have the karmic connection. Maybe the Lama knows, maybe not, but we do not need to ask. We should know it depends on our own mind. If we regularly train our minds, we definitely have the connection for liberation. If we never practice at all, never observe our mind, even if a Lama prophesies that we will attain Buddhahood soon, we will not. If we never observe our mind, even though a Lama pulls us by our hair to the Pure Land, we wouldn't be able to go. Especially for monastics without hair, even pulling them by the ears, they wouldn't be able to go. So I think everyone should understand that observing the mind is very important. All the lineage masters and all these treatises we study all say that everything is created by the mind. Whether we are studying Buddhist logic or the middle way, we often mention the principle that all phenomena are merely mind. It is a bit difficult to understand at first. Now, after relying on scriptural and logical reasoning, there is no reason for anyone not to develop faith. If you still have doubts, thinking all phenomena are definitely not mind, and you have some reasons, you can bring them up. If you really have a reason why all phenomena are not mind, you can bring it up. But among all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, great masters and wise ones throughout history, no one has ever been able to give a reason that all phenomena are not mind. So it is even less likely that any of us today can come up with such a reason. Therefore, it is extremely important to develop faith in the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism. All right, we will stop here for today.
Bandharangara Padmasada Bandharangara Padmasada